In the last year, I've had the great honor to help cut a ribbon on two major MAPS projects, the Pete White Senior Wellness Center in Capitol Hill in South OKC, and the downtown streetcar I mentioned earlier. These projects follow the other MAPS 3 successes, the Riversport Entertainment District, the Northwest Senior Center, the State Fair's Bennett Event Center, and many, many miles of new trails and sidewalks. In the next 2 years, we'll cut the ribbons on two more major projects for our city, Scissortail Park and the Convention Center. The transformation happening just south of here is remarkable. And I remind you, it was first envisioned over a decade ago by the Core to Shore Planning Committee. The streetcar was first envisioned a quarter century ago when it was first approved as a project in MAPS 1. I know that sometimes the slow pace of progress can seem oppressive when you're living it. Then you look back and it all seems like it happened so fast your head is spinning. Just remember that we have a proven track record in this city of dreaming big and then making those dreams come true. So let's talk about our next big dream. Let's talk about MAPS 4. Earlier, I discussed the temporary sales tax for streets. Though street repair work will continue, that tax collection ends at the end of March 2020. That means we as a community could have the opportunity to continue investing in things we consider important to our future without increasing the sales tax rate above where it is today. We'd have to make that decision as a community in a vote of the people near the end of this year. And your council would have to present a package to you for your consideration around Labor Day. With all of that in mind, the council and I opened the door this past fall to your MAPS 4 ideas. We asked what was important to you. What are the challenges we need to meet, and what are the opportunities we need to seize? We are doing this primarily through a website, ideasformaps.com. But we're also receiving ideas via mail, social media, conversations, meetings. I've posted in message boards. I've opened scary boxes that arrived at City Hall. I've left no stone unturned in seeking your feedback. Last week, I visited with kids from Positive Tomorrows at the downtown library to hear their thoughts. There they are. After all, MAPS initiatives are once-in-a-decade opportunities, and the course we set is as much for those kids as it is for us. This conversation is just now starting to transition from idea solicitation to discussion of those ideas. But the door for ideas is certainly not closed. As I said earlier, we'll have 2 new council members arriving in April who will certainly want to contribute to this discussion. But I believe today is a moment to share a little of what we're hearing after 3 months of ideas. Before I list the ideas, let me also say a word about the form of MAPS, which in the past has sometimes caused a perception that the MAPS impact has its limitations. Namely, MAPS is often perceived to be exclusively of use to capital projects. But there actually is a historic exception to that. MAPS 1 included endowments funded through the use tax portion of sales tax to fund operations of the projects. Those endowments were not structured to survive perpetually, but they could have been. And in any case, they helped transition the projects to long-term success. Those operations cost challenges are real, and they shouldn't be ignored. Additionally, some of the priorities I'm hearing for MAPS 4 are really not solved by bricks and mortar. They're addressed by people and programs, and those things cost money beyond the life of a temporary tax. And though I think MAPS should remain a temporary tax, this is a conundrum we can solve. Again, we have the model from MAPS 1, and we could also tweak it in a way to make the endowments perpetual, extending the legacy forever. Put another way, the proceeds of a temporary tax put aside and managed responsibly could produce reasonably expected returns that meet certain specific needs till the end of time. This is a groundbreaking idea for government, but it is one commonly pursued by nonprofits, wealthy individuals, universities, churches, the list goes on. Today, I'm asking you to consider this endowment concept in the months ahead. If at its root, the MAPS model was an example of a government trying innovative new approaches to solving community challenges, this endowment concept is just as innovative, just as groundbreaking, just as powerful. In that regard, it is in the tradition of MAPS as much as anything else. With that said, and with no further ado, this is what I'm hearing is important to you. The general priorities I'm about to list are in no particular order, other than maybe alphabetical, and the fact I am uttering them out loud, and even perhaps in a favorable light, is not an endorsement of any particular one. My view, I'm glad you heard that. My view of my role is that of an honest broker, getting us to an outcome that reflects a consensus of the people who love this city. This is and will continue to be a transparent discussion in our community for the next year, and that transparency continues today. You need to hear what I'm hearing. We've received well over 1,000 submissions, but these are the 24 or so thus far that seem to have some traction and seem to fit the transformational tradition of maps. First up, in alphabetical order, an aerospace job training center. This was actually suggested by the South Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. New facilities for animal welfare. A world-class aquarium, perhaps downtown, operated by our Oklahoma City Zoo. There have been various ideas in the arts, support for the art museum, an endowment to sustain arts education in our schools, public art, a music embassy. Beautification. There is still sometimes a perception that OKC has not paid enough attention to this issue. What would it look like if we put real money into what one might call extreme beautification of our highways, where we spend way too much of our time? New pedestrian bridges in South OKC, new iconic bridges over the river, better retaining walls, landscaping along key corridors like I-44, I-240, I-35, the road from the airport. Beautification of this nature could also include gateways to the city and placemaking in key corridors. Talk in this area has also centered around more trees, iconic landmarks, and an endowment to better maintain our medians. Next, criminal justice reform. Mental health investments to take that pressure off of our county jail, perhaps, or a facility to provide better reentry for those involved in the criminal justice system. Education. Though we don't operate the schools, and I'll talk more about education in a few minutes, perhaps we can find some ways to help in MAPS 4. This could include performing arts centers, STEM education centers, a teacher village, or endowments to support arts education or to fund different ideas for supporting our teachers. Homelessness. Facilities or an endowment to help meet this need. Our overall homeless population has decreased, but unsheltered homeless has increased. We as a community have largely depended on nonprofits to address the issue of homelessness. Let me mention especially, I commend all of those working towards a new low-barrier shelter to open in the next year, and the work of the Curbside Chronicle remains innovative and inspiring. Last year, the city doubled our commitment to the Homeless Alliance State Shelter, but perhaps the city needs to do more through MAPS 4. The Innovation District, what some may still call the Health Sciences Center in near northeast Oklahoma City, could receive investments to help turn it into a true innovation district, a center for entrepreneurship. Our community still needs more infrastructure to truly have the entrepreneurial ecosystem a city of this size deserves. The job growth centerpiece of MAPS 4 could be a package of investments in the Innovation District. This could start with connectivity over the highway to better link the Innovation District with the Central Business District. It could also include a streetcar extension, an incubator accelerator for startups, or a higher education consortium. The Oklahoma River, further investments there to continue supporting that unique jewel. Palomar, a new facility to capitalize on the great momentum achieved by our Family Justice Center, helping to serve victims of domestic violence in our city. Parks. What would it look like if we invested in our neighborhood parks across the city? More amenities in every park, new playgrounds, covers for the playgrounds, new regional parks, and various unique amenities requested through the years, like dog parks and pickleball. It's just fun to say, isn't it? Pickleball. More senior wellness centers to continue the momentum of that project in MAPS 3. A multi-purpose stadium to be a permanent home for our energy soccer team and to provide a venue for other sporting events, concerts, and entertainment. A new coliseum at the State Fair to replace the rapidly aging Nordic Arena, maintaining our unique role as the home of horse shows, state basketball tournaments, the Oklahoma Youth Expo, and the various events during the annual State Fair, like Disney on Ice. Upgrades to Chesapeake Arena to ensure it stays up to modern standards, as well as investments in our NBA practice facility. This may surprise you, but by the time many MAPS 4 projects will have been completed, we will be 20 years away from the Big League City vote of 2008. The Thunder has changed this city forever, but their lease ends in just 5 years. We as a community have to continue to invest in facilities, and not just for the Thunder. The Chesapeake Arena is our community gathering place for all kinds of entertainment and really drives so much about how we perceive ourselves and how others perceive us. Transit. It was the #1 request in the MAPS 3 process, and it is again in MAPS 4. As I said earlier, the Regional Transit Authority will take the lead on commuter transit between the cities and our metro, but Maps 4 could play a role in transit within our city. This can include streetcar extensions, better bus service, more bus rapid transit, and bus shelters. Establishing walkability continues to be a high priority for our city. Maps 4 can include work towards completion of the city's recently adopted bike walk plan. Maps 4 could also include more trails and sidewalks. 4 of the last 5 initiatives approved by voters have included sidewalks, but in a city this size, there's still much to do. The youth of our city. I said earlier that we build these projects for our kids and our grandkids, and that has not been lost on our citizens because a lot of projects have come forward in this ideas solicitation for how youth sports and arts can benefit our kids. This could include completion of a soccer facility that is a true regional draw, an aquatic center that our city currently lacks, a regional basketball facility. Also, probably other than transit, the thing I've heard the most so far from you is youth centers around our city, bringing together multiple partners and providing after-school and summer opportunities for enrichment through sports and arts to give all the children of Oklahoma City the same opportunities that many of us take for granted. That is a lot of ideas for Maps 4 projects. And I think it is important for me to say we can't do it all in Maps 4. We simply can't. But we can do some of it. In fact, we could do a lot of it, but not all of it. As you consider the ideas I've just laid out, I will observe that a couple themes seem to be emerging, and perhaps you notice them as well. First of all, the crisis of 1993 was that there was simply nothing fun to do in Oklahoma City. As superficial as that may sound, we discovered it was an existential crisis. Our city was dying because people have choices as to where they live, and largely because of how, lame it was in Oklahoma City, they were choosing to live elsewhere. The subject matters of Maps 1 and Maps 3 were reactions to that very real problem. In contrast, the subject matter of Maps 2, better known as Maps for Kids, was a reaction to a slightly different kind of problem, an education challenge that was affecting our city in almost every neighborhood. Maps for Kids was Maps for Neighborhoods before anyone started using that phrase. It was dealing with a social challenge, and it was doing it neighborhood by neighborhood. So the first theme I see emerging in these Maps 4 ideas is that our citizens' priorities right now are as focused on the challenges faced by our neighborhoods and our people, and in many cases those who face the most challenges, as they are focused on fun stuff to do. Now, I don't want to see our city ignore the competition in which we are always engaged, a competition for jobs and talented young people. So I still see a demand for and a place for some inspiring and fun quality of life investments in Maps 4. But I also see a theme emerging of balancing those priorities, this time with the tough challenges some of our citizens face every day. You heard me mention things like mental health, criminal justice reform, homelessness, domestic violence, education. These are challenges I do not believe the people of Oklahoma City want to ignore in Maps 4. Second, I also see a theme of geographic distribution. I make no apology for how much of Maps 1 and 3 were focused on downtown Oklahoma City. This area in which we sit is our entire community's neighborhood, and it defines us around the nation and the world. And it was a wasteland that needed support and investment, and it has received it. And much like we stepped back after Maps 1 and invested more around the city in Maps for Kids, I believe that demand exists once again. And that is not to say that not a single project in Maps 4 may land downtown. Take updating of the arena, for example. What would our city's identity be without the Thunder? To maintain that, we may absolutely need to invest in a quality of life project downtown. But when you look at the totality of the Maps 4 initiative, both in subject matter and in geography, based on what I'm hearing so far, previous balances may shift. I think the list of ideas so far is inspiring. The prospect that we might adopt some of these priorities as a community just under a year from now is exciting. This is a great time to be alive in Oklahoma City. We get to decide what we will look forward to for the next decade, just as we last did in 2009 when we adopted Maps 3. But we have work to do, and for the next year, we will be about it.